Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and podcast for another match reaction. I think all of us got smiles on our faces, but before we get started, I want to give all three of yous, Scott, Joe, and Matthew, yellow cards. Let's just continue as the night went on.
Well, Chris, Joe, I'm going to do. Joe, I'm going to do.
What?
I'm going to give you a yellow card. There you go.
We'll get on to the yellow cards in just a moment. Good to see you, boys. A great result tonight for Newcastle United, 0-0, trip to the Emirates, somewhere that we don't normally do too well at Scott. But like we said in the match preview, one change tonight. Callum Wilson comes in, Kris Wood drops to the bench.
Yep.
And pretty much as expected. That game, I think we're all pretty confident that we might get something from it. I think we're all predicted a draw on the match preview.
Yep.
We also said that we wouldn't be too shocked if we won the game. We wouldn't be shocked if we got an absolute hiding either. But Scott, nils each. Great point.
It is. It's a great point. It was one of those where you're quite confident going into it, but you know what Arsenal can do. And then once you see Arsenal play, you realise that, they're a team them like, and they can really hurt you. And there was times where, we were on the back foot, but we held our own, and we absolutely just, it's what you want from games like that in the position that we're in. You just don't want to lose them. That's the only thing you don't want to do. And I think we've played, the only team we've lost points on who you could class as probably top 6 is Liverpool. And we're getting points from everyone else. And that just warrants our league position and proves that this isn't a fluke. Like, we should be where we are in the league because we're putting in the graft. And I don't think they've grafted as hard as they have tonight. And it was a graft and it was a tough slog. But my God, it was a good game to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it would have been a great game for a neutral to watch that. I said just before we started recording this, I thoroughly enjoyed that game apart from the last handful of minutes. I really did enjoy it. Matty, somebody that doesn't normally enjoy watching football, how was your evening?
It was fine. Lovely. No, it was one of those games. I've experienced plenty of them in the past where I, being the pessimistic one I am, sort of went into the game expecting nothing. The first 10 minutes, I thought, we were going to get nothing. We grew into the game a little bit in the first half, but I think we were a different type of brilliant tonight for what we've shown this season. We've played the likes of Chelsea, and beat them handily, even though it was only 1-0. We've took it to Man City, but today we had to be a different type of brilliant and dip back into that sort of catalogue of shithousery that we sort of used at the end of last season. But we defended very, very well and carved out a few half chances, a couple of opportunities. But I would put that up there with probably our best point of the season. Arsenal are flying, and for us to limit them to, the shots on target that they got, I'm sure we'll get on to Nick Pope's save at the end, but for them to not score a goal today, having scored in every game this season, it's massive. And those last 5 minutes or 6 minutes or so did my cardiomyopathy no favours.
Joe, Matty's mentioned there how resilient we were in defence. It's something which we're coming quite accustomed to at the minute, where we are just stopping any team having any clear-cut chances.
Mate, honestly, as the old saying goes, attack wins your games, defense wins your championships, right? Obviously, I'm not saying we're going to win.
What you're trying to say, yeah?
I'm saying we're going to win the bloody lot, mate. No, nah. But that performance just goes. It's just like it's just a complete perfect example of why we're in the position that we're in. It's, even the team, like, I remember I was at the Emirates when Howard first took over, and it was a similar game where we were defending for our absolute lives, and we didn't have that quality to see it through. We lost 2-0, and this was the game that showed we're not just about blowing teams away 3-4-0. This is a team that is absolutely solid in defense. So many teams, even in the top 6 teams, would have crumbled at some point during that game, and I'm just so proud of the lads for seeing it through. We could have lost our heads. We could have absolutely lost our heads, especially with the amount of yellows that were getting given out. But you know what it was? To a man, they were absolutely fantastic. And it's a different kind of strength and resilience, like you say, that it takes to see through a game like that, especially when, the Emirates sounded pretty good tonight. The crowd's on you.
Sounded very loud tonight.
it was, yeah, to a man, it was absolutely fantastic, and they're the kind of games that you look back on at the end of the season and go, that was the point that potentially gets us Europe. So absolutely fantastic. I'm still calming down from it, to be honest, man. I'm like, I was sat there for the last 5 minutes, just like, well, probably last 35 minutes, just begging them not to score. We did well, man. We did really well. You know, we took a few chances to them as well. You know, it wasn't just back to the wall for 90 minutes either.
Scott, you mentioned that how hard the lads worked tonight, and it's shown throughout from start to finish. The referee said he stole out very early in regards to how he was going to handle that game. He probably regretted it after he gave Newcastle 2 back-to-back yellow cards within a couple of minutes for soft challenges, really.
Yeah.
Going further into the game, do you think that worked in our favour to a degree because it gave us the chance to slow things down?
Yeah, it did. Do you know what it was? I noticed that Arsenal, they start off by attacking our left-hand side with Dan Burn because they thought that was a weakness, and we soon nullified that with Joe Willock, who was excellent, and Joe Linton.
Great game.
Really, really good covering with Dan Burn, and then it was allowing Dan Burn to drop into that back three almost to stop, anyone coming in from the attack. But once they realised that, and I think once the bookings started flowing, Arsenal switched to the right-hand side, I noticed, because it wasn't the fact that Trippier and Shaw were booked, but I think they must have known, like, they don't want to get booked because they're on 4 yellow cards. And this is the last week where if they get that 5th, they'll be banned next game. So I think they tried to exploit that side when they realised they weren't getting the joy on the left. But yeah, I think a few of those yellow cards were very, very weak, and they shouldn't have been. I think Bruno's was the one where
Joe Linton's the one which stands
Joe
out
Linton
to me.
Won the ball, and the player kicked his ankle, and he gets a yellow card. It's just like how and the referee's miles away as well. That's on the linesman. The linesman either doesn't do anything, or he's the one who's kind of flagging to say, yeah, there's a foul there, which, I'm not too bothered about the yellow card because, like I say, I think they all reset from this week. And I think this game week 19, which is this week, which is where they reset. So I'm not too bothered about that. But the free kick that they got was in a very dangerous area. You're on the corner of the box and it can change a game. And I think we've talked about this before, but it's the lack of consistency. Not just during a game, but throughout the league where, one ref will give one thing and one ref will give another. It must be impossible to be a footballer playing, not know what you're going to get from an official when really there should be every week exactly the same. I thought the referee ruined it, and he nearly ruined it for himself quite big style when he almost didn't book Xhaka for that challenge that he put in. And it took a few of the Newcastle players to get around the ref to be like, hang on a minute. You're giving yellow cards for small fouls like that, and then you're not giving it for this. Yeah, it was frustrating. It was very frustrating.
Matty, we spoke about just how well Newcastle have done, and that's not taking away anything from Arsenal, because I was watching that Arsenal team tonight, and they cut through us at times, just with grass cutting balls so powerful that they'll just find their way into our box. And as well as we were, that takes nothing away from them, because I thought they were impressive as well tonight, apart from in front of goal.
Yeah, it was just finding that that clean cut chance, because I mean they got one at the end through Nketiah, and you just had that feeling that it's because we got so many players around the ball when they get into the box, and we're not too rash with our challenges. But they did sort of break the lines a lot. There was a lot of players taking up spaces between the midfield and defence, and they were just zipping them in, and their touches were so good, and then they were working them out wide. Like Scott said, first on the right and then the left, and then switching it over. Odegaard, again, very classy player. Gary Neville pointed out that in the first half, he was sort of taking up a position between our left centre-half and Dan Burn, hoping that Dan Burn would sort of push onto him and release Saka. And then started doing the opposite with, Xhaka and Martinelli. We sort of see Xhaka as this, I always see him as some sort of sort of hard defensive midfielder. But he showed tonight that he can pick a pass. He just maybe obviously not the right one at times, but he played some really good football. It was just in and around the box. We were steadfast like we have been, and we're just getting our head and toes to everything we could. But yeah, Arsenal again. That's why this point's so massive, because they're playing such good football. We didn't allow them to. Again, we to sort of not try to upset anyone, but there's a lot of people upset at what Leeds did at the weekend at St James's Park. Well, we've just done something very similar to Arsenal, especially in those last 10, 15 minutes. So again, it's down to our good defending. But again, I see Arsenal taking this right to the end for the title. Like,
yeah, they look really good. I'm going to stay with you, Matty, because you mentioned Dan Burn there and what Gary Neville highlighted, how his knowledge in that game. That's probably something which they've been looking into building up to this game, about how well the work got on and Saka. Saka got past him a couple of times. Didn't stop him whatsoever, because Dan Burn, I thought he had a great game despite getting the run around a couple of times by Saka. But I think, was that down to defence and numbers?
A bit of both, I think. Definitely in that first 5-minute period when Saka just literally put the afterburners on from a standing start and done him. I think that was maybe Eddie Howard already said to Joe Willock and Joe Linton to get over and cover, but it just didn't work that first 5 minutes. But it certainly seemed like a more concerted effort after that run by Saka, and he did still cause them some chew. Odegaard got past him a couple of times, but Dan Burn, it's what you see is what you get. I think probably, if we're all being honest, if we're going to have a more complete side in the future, he won't be playing at left back. If we want to look more dangerous down the left-hand side, we'd need a more dynamic left back. But there's a reason that he's staying there, and that's clean sheets. And you don't want to rock a boat or fix something that isn't broken. So Dan Burn, positionally, especially in the second half, there was a couple of times where he let the ball run across him a couple of times. There was a bit where Saka was running at him and it went out for a goal kick and he celebrated. Just sort of did a little fist pump and that. So yeah, he played really well, but the sort of way that we were, our formation was to sort of defend his shortcomings a little bit, and we did it very well.
Yeah, we spoke about the defence quite a lot there, Joel, but that doesn't mean that I didn't have chances to take the lead in the game. Just before half time, Joe Linton gets a great opportunity. How does he miss that?
You know what? It's coming so quick, and he's just slightly misjudged the flight of the ball. He thinks it's coming in just a little bit too shallow than what it was, and he dips his head just at the last second, and it just catches him a bit too high. It's one of those where it's easy to look back on in slow motion and to think, oh, you should have done better. But in reality, these things go by so quickly, and you can't really blame him for too much. So it was a game of relatively few chances for us, which is not something we're used to seeing. But at the same time, I think it was more of a half chance than anything else. So it was unlucky. But it was one of those where it just came in a little bit too quick for him to react properly.
Yeah, I'll stay with you, Joe. The second half starts off quite similar to how the first half started. Arsenal go for it in that opening 10 minutes. But once again, it doesn't take us long to find our feet. Then just slow everything down and control everything, especially within the defensive line. It just looked, after those first 10, 15 minutes, up until the stoppage time, that it didn't look like they were going to get past it.
No, mate, no. When the game first kicked off, it took about 15, 20 minutes for it to die down and for us to really find our feet. It was pretty relentless. But like you say, second half, we seemed to have a bit more of a control of the game, nullified them a little bit better. We kept Odegaard more quiet than we did in the first half. I thought he had an excellent game. The link up between him and Saka was really dangerous. And we just seemed to sort of calm down a little bit. We were at risk of losing our heads, especially with how many yellow cards were getting sent. We're getting put out in the first half. So to come out more measured, more controlled, a little bit more in the game early on, it was just quite a mature reaction, I thought, and we did well. And that's when we started to really frustrate them. They started to realize that they couldn't quite break us down as much as they thought they could, especially in the first half. So, I think we were quite smart in that.
Scott, Matty mentioned
said at halftime worked.
Matty mentioned some fans' reactions about how Leeds performed at St James's Park and how they slowed the game down and then time wasted to a degree. We done very similar tonight, and
to a degree, by the way.
To
a degree, to the nth degree. I think
being
you're
nice.
there.
I was being nice, mate. But it's shown tonight. Mikel Arteta was furious as that game went on. He was not happy that there was 5 minutes added on towards the end. I think he was expecting double figures at one point. It showed that Newcastle, despite how well we are doing, we still have that shithousery in with.
Yep. I mean, I was very surprised that Arteta didn't get a yellow card because everyone else did.
I tell you who else did.
Even the Cells got a second yellow card for not playing a minute of football, which that must be some record that I'm pretty sure he's now probably the only player that's ever done that in a single season, get 2 yellow cards without playing a minute of football, which is it's impressive. No, but yeah, I mean, to be fair, I was surprised there was only 5 minutes of injury time. I thought it'd be a lot more. Just given, the number of stoppages before, the shithousery started, and then obviously adding that on as well. It was weird because we saw that in the Leeds game where the referee made a point to say, look, I've stopped the clock. And then when the minutes came up, it wasn't what anyone was expecting. And he only played a couple of minutes over what.
Do you think, just to interrupt you, Scott, do you think that's because we came so used to how it was handled in the World Cup that there was X amount of minutes added on, and now we're back to the Premier League? It doesn't seem to happen that way.
I think so. You will every single game. Well, every single half was 10 minutes injury time in the World Cup. So, you were expecting that to carry on. And we had the same, last year in the Euros where the refereeing was at such a high caliber and really, really well that when the season started, we're like, oh, hang on, what's happened to the refereeing? It's not as good as it should be. And it's because I think international refereeing is notoriously better than what we have in this country. There's some referees around the world which are a lot better. That being said, I think this referee probably took note of the Argentina game with these yellow cards and wanted to just keep dishing them out. I was very surprised that Arteta lost his cool. I haven't seen him do that before. Like, you see him get animated, but not to that extent. I mean, he was up and down that kind of the wing. He was going up and down,
He even managed to wind Eddie Howe up, which takes some effort.
That takes some doing.
I'd love to know what he said. I'd love to know what he said. It was that reaction out of Eddie Howe. Even the commentator said you don't normally see this from Eddie Howe.
I think it was mainly down to how much he was basically begging for that to be a penalty towards the end, and I don't think Eddie Howe was happy with how he went on about it, because he ran up, like Scott said, he ran up the wing, then he ran back down to the fourth official.
And there's no chance that was a penalty either, by the way. It's Jacob Murphy's arm was next to his chest. It wasn't the arm that was sticking out, and he wasn't even looking at the ball. It's too close.
It got to that point for Arsenal, though, didn't it? It got a bit desperate for them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if that's what you're relying on to win the game, then they're absolutely getting desperate, because they can't argue that lost them the game. They should have had that game won, arguably in the first 20 minutes. They should have had it won, arguably in the second half, and they didn't take their chances. It's the same as us last week, against Leeds. We should have won that game. We had the chances. We didn't capitalize on it, and then we're blaming Leeds for the defeat when really Leeds, we played into their hands, and the same today, Arsenal played into our hands exactly how we wanted them to do. Just because you mentioned
you mentioned it there, Scott. I'm going to come across to you, Matty. Scott just described that 0-0 against Leeds as a defeat. This 0-0 against Arsenal feels like a victory.
Win. It's a
exactly.
100%.
It just shows you like where we are at the minute, doesn't it?
Yeah, 2 0-0s on opposite side of the coin. Something poetic about it, in the fact that where we're wanting to go is what Leeds and sides like Leeds are going to come to St James's Park and do. However, we're not quite there yet, so we need to go to Emirates and do what Leeds did to us. There's a quite beautiful symmetry there, but I'm absolutely over the moon with that. I just want to sort of reiterate that I'm just buzzing. It's a different, like I said, a different type of brilliance, and that desperation from Arsenal. Like you said, there was a handball claim when they hit Botman in the stomach. They were getting that, and then, to be fair, for a good 5 seconds, I was saying it's a Stonewall penalty, the Murphy handball, because Newcastle, I just thought,
of course you were,
of course it is. But then when I saw it, I just thought, surely with the rules in place, the proximity in that, thankfully it didn't get given. Over the moon, but just hopefully we can just kick on from here because we're so busy.
You also mentioned, Matty.
You mentioned fans were chanting VAR at that movie. They were so desperate for it. Yeah.
Oh god. Matty, you mentioned early on this one that save by Nick Pope towards the end. Great save, mate, and
that's a proper save. That
it is. That's your match-winning save. That it really is. Match-drawn save, match-winning save. What we're calling it? What are we even calling it?
Point-saving save.
Point-saving save. Surprised to see Dubravka straight on the bench.
Aye.
It's a bit of a strange one. Like,
I like
it's
him.
a strange one.
I've got no hard feelings against the boy. He went on a little holiday down to Manchester. Thought he might play in Europe. He didn't. Never mind.
Came back to play in Europe.
Came back. Might get back into Europe. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, look. At the end of the day, I don't think he had that much ill feeling towards Newcastle. I don't think Newcastle has that much ill feeling towards him. It was a strange situation. Obviously, Karius is, I've read, going in September. Is it next September? No, is it something like that? I can't remember what it was.
It's gone, isn't it? I think it was
January.
January.
I thought
it was like a short-term loan, wasn't it?
No,
Yeah,
I
it was
thought he was
only
still.
6 months.
Someone tweeted saying he was still a Newcastle player, but probably
maybe he is.
misinformed. But either way, Dubravka comes back. He's your number 2 straight away. Whether we're going to put our optimistic tinfoil hats on and think that he's going to be used as leverage for a certain central midfielder or winger or Englishman or Belgian
or 2 centre midfielders.
To come, we don't know, hopefully. But I'm not. It's a strange one. Strange to see him straight back, but at the end of the day, he's out of them 4. He's the second best keeper by a mile. So it doesn't really make sense to
it's strange because he's been recalled. It's not that he's not that his loan's ended. We've recalled him, so it's either Howe doesn't rate Karius and doesn't want him back, or there's another injury that we don't know about. Maybe it's called Darlow or Gillespie. Or
there's interest from another club.
A club has went, do you want to buy this player? We want that player. Get him back, and we'll do a deal.
Dangle
ITK on this channel.
To move away from the likes of transfers and I go back to the game. You mentioned this, Joe, on the preview, I believe it was. A lot of fans were unsure that we needed upgrade in that goalkeeping position. But once again, Nick Pope shows you what the next step is from Dubravka, because I was the same as everybody else. I thought we don't need to replace Dubravka, but Nick Pope brings something else, and that's mainly down to confidence and how well he controls the game as well from the back.
Oh, he absolutely commands that box, doesn't he? And it's
At
it's quite evident. At times. I mean, he's a massive part of why we have such a great defense this season. And like you said, like you mentioned there, that save at the end, that is a save that some keepers. I mean, considering that, for large periods of time, to be fair, he didn't actually have a lot to do because we were managing to, defend quite high up the pitch, and so it was just it was one of those moments that gets you those points, like you say, a match-drawn save. And
match-drawn save. I love how that's a phrase now that we're going with.
Point save and
match-drawn save. That's a phrase. Point save and save. Yeah.
PSS.
No, he's a fantastic keeper, man. He's so good. And yeah, like you say, he just commands that box, and you can see how comfortable everyone is. Him being in that box, and it's And I don't know how old he is. How old is Nick Pope now? He's like 30?
No idea. No idea. I'm not even going to guess because I'll be completely wrong.
Yeah, but he's going to be in our box for years to come, and we've got a fantastic bloody keeper on our hands. Like,
speaking about players that we're hoping that are going to stay here for a long time, Scott, Sven Botman once again, nothing gets past him.
I'm going to start calling him Gandalf because nothing gets past him. Absolutely nothing. He was. I hate when people call him Rolls Royce, but he was absolutely Rolls Royce tonight. He was second to none. But not only his defensive stuff, his passing, his cross pass fields to Miggy and Trippier earlier on in that game were absolutely sublime. And it's like you look at John Joe Shelby and he could pull off those passes. But there were a few where they would go astray and it wouldn't always be perfect. You don't see that with Sven Botman. If he knows he can't make the pass, he'll pick another pass and he'll either play it in the middle. And I think there was a point where we had the possession and the commentators was like, don't let this go back to the goalkeeper and this is good. And Sven Botman gets the ball. And you've seen it time and time again with Newcastle where the centre-back gets the ball, they turn around and they pass it back to the keeper. He didn't. He looked up and he found Sean Longstaff in the middle of the field, and the commentators were like, that's what you want to be doing. That's how you play. That's good football. We've got a hell of a centre-back, and he's 24, I think.
He might be younger, mate.
That might be younger.
22.
23.
22, 23.
Split the difference.
You know what it is? People compare him to Van Dijk. He's like Van Dijk, but he can pass a ball, and that's where he's a level above, I think.
I get a bit worried about those types of
I
comparisons.
hate them as well, but yeah.
But like, I mean, I'm not going to tip myself too far ahead, but he is bloody fantastic. And if we're going to mention him, we're going to mention Shah as well. Sorry,
Yeah.
but I think he's becoming this. He's obviously been
Shaw
always been a
had
classy
such a good game
footballer.
tonight.
Yeah. He had a great game, and he broke forward into space a few times. Didn't pick the pass properly. So what? He was trying to, just get us forward, but he was all action at the back, getting his toe and everything. Throws his head at everything.
He's like a magnet for head injuries. That's what it is.
Every single game.
Head injuries. I think sometimes they are head injuries. Sometimes it's just like you say, just trying to. It's an important game, just trying to wind down the clock. But he's been class, and I'm not going to go off on another positivity tirade, but just that fucking beautiful defensive unit we have there is just ridiculous, man. I get to the last 5 minutes, and I think, oh shit, it's another clean sheet. Oh, I've got another clean sheet. That's now 12. And that's 2 more than anyone else.
Was it a club? You matched the club record, I think it was today.
Yeah,
Nick
from 40 years ago in Division 2 or something. Brilliant, absolutely class. And it's all down to all 5 of them. And, and even, the likes of Matt Target coming off the bench, just, giving it their all. So it's just absolutely class, and long may it continue.
I think it's one of those games just to wrap this one up before we sign out for the night, because it's getting quite late.
It is.
It is for Scott because he's now ahead of everybody else. Yeah. It's one of those games where every single player on that field has an absolute fantastic game. It was a great game to watch. And I think we mentioned this a couple of times. It was a different performance from Newcastle United.
They were brilliant in different ways, Chris. That's what I keep saying. Because some neutral could you say that and say, well, they didn't really. They weren't rinsing fullbacks. They weren't slotting passes through the centre of the park. But they all did their jobs properly, and they all tackled and battled for each other, and that's why everyone was brilliant.
It's that thing which we're seeing every single match day, how they're working as a team and as a unit. It's not just one player closing the opposition down. It's a handful of them. And as soon as we get that ball, we're away. So it wasn't... I really did enjoy that game tonight. We'll sign it out there. So thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next week. Ta-ra!